Somewhere there is a spider called Harrison Ford, another genus known as Orson Welles. The ocean's full of seahorses who take their names from racing champs. Above our heads, a solitary Greta Garbo wasp takes flight. Each day, someone adopts a killer whale or buys a patch of moon only to call it Bob. And last night, watching meteors sail drunk across the Grasmere sky, you told me there are minor planets christened Elvis, Nietzsche, Mr. Spock. So forgive me if I looked up past your face to see those nearly silver drops make rivers in the dark, and for a moment thought there might be stars named after us. Something is taking shape inside a house with all the lights switched off. A house in Manchester. A house so inconspicuous from where we stand, it might just be a denser patch of night. Each room within a further density, a patterning of air. Something is taking shape in Wilmslow, in a house that could be yours. Look close. By dark, our truest shapes perform themselves. A sleeper settles in a pose he'll never see. Your body's nothing but another density, a shadow maker, trailing copies like black veils. Something is taking shape in Manchester. Down every unlit street, the evening spirals in a million spruce cone shapes, 1,000 natural designs, unseen, unknown. The way in sleep, even the body that you lie beside might be invisible. Something is taking shape tonight, by dark, unwatched, inside your room, behind your fast-shut eyes. The city is a black kaleidoscope, a mass of forms, now arms, now shells, now butterflies, no pattern ever satisfactory. Something is taking shape. Don't turn the lamp on it. Don't find the switch just yet. Don't let the candle catch it and ignite. For now, lie close here in the restless night, your body naked, patternless. These things that no one understands, the how you sifted carefully from what, the mystery of touching hands, the way the leopard got its spots, instructions drafted in the sand, the slender line that joins the dots, how well the apple fits your hand. Turing's leopard is the size and slenderness of Italy, eats only when he does not look at it, copies its pounces from the stance of clouds. Its paws are mathematically achieved. It stays one pace behind, stops when he stops, walks when he walks, breathes only if he breathes. The chain it ranges on is made from formulae. It knows the slickness of departing birds. Its nose is softer than a leather driving glove. It doesn't sleep. It only blinks when it forgets itself. To touch its fur would be to touch the moon. Its spine curves like a fishing rod, and it is half as old and twice as patient as you'd guess. At sunset, when it settles on a step too small for it, shaded by sycamores, it mimics stone, waits for an explanation strong enough to let it run. Physics of instability, a code that ticks in the machine, a blemish in your symmetry, the spoke, the catch, the slip, the lean, between chemist and chemistry, the gap, the hole through which you're seen. How can instructions make the brain? How does a pattern find itself? How random is a fall of rain? How does the snake acquire its stealth? How do you face yourself again, or turn your questions on yourself? Could it remake the world, the slim machine you dreamed about, the one with infinite capacities? Could it reweave the rainbow, indigo to gold, but leave a single thread untied, so we'd unravel it again one day, undo the sequencing, pull at the cord that keeps the sky itself tied up? Could it anticipate the galaxies? And would it ever hesitate? And would it stand the way we all do sometimes, by the door, afraid to open it, or by the tap, afraid to drink? And would it hold the apple countless times and lift it shining to the light, afraid to raise it near the lips, afraid in the event to bite? Each sequence has to end somewhere. The tapered midpoint of the shell, the body left to rain and air, the pine cone resting where it fell. You put your coat on, smooth your hair. You hardly taste or touch or smell. Your clothes are moonlight and your head is bare. Be still, there's nothing more to tell.
Moving house is not a situation but an event. It is unpleasant most of the time, but once the keys have been collected and the boxes unloaded from the van, it is over. It is not something that persists. You don't move for weeks or years or months on end. Even if you move house a lot, you move one day, then it's over, you've moved. The rest is opening boxes and connecting electricity, which might be unpleasant too, but it is something different. It is not moving house. So, moving house is not like having the flu or cancer. It is not like having an affair or living with a man who hits you or doesn't hit you, which in some ways would be better, but doesn't look at you that much either. Those are situations, not events. They have duration, and once the time for them to endure has passed, you can never be sure if you're actually out of it, or just in remission. Gemma's empty cardboard boxes are stacked in the living room and the hallway. She does the last thing, which is to place 3 scatter cushions on her sofa. The curtains are open. It is dark outside and the window has diminished to a black rectangle, a mirror which reflects her jabbing elbows and startles her. The sofa is facing the window and she sits on it and looks at herself. It is disconcerting. It is like watching television. She grimaces and rubs the scale from her teeth onto the ribbed cuff of her cardigan. 2 of the scatter cushions are green, a waving, swirling green that reminded her of the sea on the day she bought them. The other is checked, black and white. She gets up and rearranges them. The checked one should not sit in the middle like that. She doesn't approve of symmetrical things, of paired objects. She likes things to be uneven, to jar against the eye, to draw attention. The sloping floors and bowed walls of this terrace on the hill please her. Her kitchen table will always rock slightly. The doors of her bookcase drift open in response to traffic on the stairs. She catches sight of herself in the window again, rearranging the cushions, plumping them gently against her chest like fat, windy babies. She wonders if she was talking to herself, or if she should start. She tries her voice in the unfamiliarly scented air. Hello? It is a question. She smiles suddenly at the doorway. It might look, she decides, if someone outside was walking past and happened to see her standing alone under the brightness of the bare bulb. It might look like she was preparing for a guest. She isn't talking to a guest. Her mother advised her to get a kitten or a puppy, but for now it is just her, and so she decides she was talking to the house. That makes more sense, is friendly, and eccentric and not mad like talking to imaginary guests with arms full of polyester babies is mad. She says, "Hello, house?" tentatively. The magnolia walls and scuffed carpets absorb her voice and remain stonily unmoved. She doesn't dare cough. At the museum, Gemma takes the trip upwards in the staff lift to the administrator's offices. She stands in front of someone's desk and waits patiently for a telephone conversation to finish. "I've moved," she says. She holds her breath, listening for the voice of the house to chime in and mock her. Nothing here but the pecking of keyboards and the radioactive hum of the computers. "You want us to update your personal records then?" the woman says, as if Gemma has done something wrong. Gemma has had to pack and load and unload and carry and lift and unpack and dust and flatten 17 boxes with writing on the side. "I have done all those things without taking one day off work," she wants to say, "and now you need to type my new address into the field in my staff record so my wage slips will reach me. You are paid for this extra work," Gemma wants to say. She bites the inside of her bottom lip. The collar of her green work blazer rasps against her neck. "I was not paid for moving house. There was no financial remuneration. There was no remuneration. I did not take time in lieu." Her mind snags on that last phrase and rebounds, slipping over the sheer surface of her panic. Time in lieu instead of. I have taken 2 years and 4 months instead of something else. I have lost time. I have not been remunerated. My new house hates me. "Take a seat then, love. There's a form, isn't there always? Let me get you a pen." She writes her address and telephone number and her new emergency contact details inside the boxes on the piece of paper. She prints the words, struggling to shrink her naturally sprawling handwriting so she won't overflow the dotted lines. She gives the piece of paper to the administrator, who looks it over and immediately begins to type the information into her computer. "Is that near the train station?" she says, nodding at the screen as if Gemma can see what is typed there. Gemma nods, remembering the new sound of trains rattling the windows, jolting the open sash closed with a bang like a shotgun. She dreamed of amputations last night. Handy for the shops, is it? The nightlife? Gemma nods again, thinking of the drift of burger boxes and chip wrappers that collect around her doorstep. She wants to tell the woman about the kebab wrapper that blew through her door and right into the hallway that first morning. It brushed against her shoes, smelling of onion and mayonnaise, and when she picked it up, the transparent grease stains made a picture of a fetus curled around its own blind, unblinking eye. There's nothing stopping her from keeping it, pinning it to her bathroom wall. No one to complain about hygiene. As she picked it up, the wind caught the door and slammed it shut. The sash windows groaned. Gemma shoved it out again through the letterbox, staring apologetically at the tiles over the kitchen sink as she washed her hands. "I have offended my new house," she thought. The admin woman looks at Gemma kindly. Gemma smiles and she realises it is time for her to take the lift back downstairs. Her main task at work is to walk around the second floor of the museum and make herself available to the patrons. She gives directions to the toilets and baby changing facilities. She recommends the cafe and gift shop. She tries to encourage people to buy programmes. She herds children behind their teachers on the school tour days. She picks up discarded leaflets and brochures, throwing away the crumpled ones and slotting the neat ones back into the correct perspex slot. She asks people, when necessary, to please refrain from touching the exhibits. She always asks like that, uses that particular phrase. They all do. Can we ask you to please refrain from touching the exhibits? And a smile, not the megawatt smile of the air hostess, but the self-effacing, apologetic smile of the public servant. The we is a nice touch too, she thinks. Deliberately chosen. Her supervisor had explained it to her on the first day. They're not here to look at us. Keep the jewellery to a minimum. Some of the girls wear lipstick. I don't recommend it, but there's no policy on it. Think neutral, think professional. You're not the exhibit. No one's meant to be looking at you, at any of us. Think about it. We're invisible. And if you ever need to talk to them directly, make sure your blazer is buttoned and always say we, like the Queen. You're not Gemma while you're working here. You're one of the floor staff. You're a customer service operative. You're a floor walker. It's about uniformity of service. They don't want personal. Get some different shoes, soft soles, nothing that creaks, he said, or something like it. He hadn't used the words to describe it to her. He probably wouldn't have even thought of them. But Gemma imagined herself as one green, silent-footed cell in the organism of the museum. When she said, can we ask you to take that ice cream into the cafe and gift shop area, please? She referred as much to the wooden floors, the pinned butterflies, the Vivian Westwood platforms, as she did to herself and her colleagues, the collective ghostly entity of the whole floor-walking team. There was talk of them getting radios, something as small as a matchbox with a discreet plug into the ear. They were going to put it to a vote sometime in the coming months after the busy season. She rubs a finger mark from a case of Victorian perfume bottles and thinks of herself withdrawing into a vestibule and whispering into her collar. She worried. Radios were radioactive, weren't they? A person shouldn't have to concern themselves with malignant multiplication while they were serving the public, should they? Events are not situations. The body isn't capable of feeling stress for extended periods of time. There is something called habituation. All things pass. Things either improve or you make yourselves at home with them. I'll be feeling better, she says to the house, cautiously. She treats herself like a convalescent, allowing herself to eat children's food, scrambled eggs, fish fingers, rice pudding. She bathes after her tea and puts herself into her pyjamas. She reads Flowers in the Attic and The Brothers Lionheart. She buys a television just for now and watches Casper and The Sound of Music. She tries to get to know the house. She runs her hands over the walls and makes overtures towards the dips in the plaster with her fingers. The house and her will take time to get to know each other, but in time they will be as intimate as lovers. She measures her breath by the drip in the tap. She pads the gap under the sash window with a lump of newspaper. She does it tenderly and waits until a train passes so she can see if it works. It works, but in the morning her newspaper is gone. She's waiting for the house to welcome her, but however many times she rearranges her possessions, spreads out the cutlery in the drawer, hangs up her clothes in the over-large wardrobe and plumps the pillows on her marshmallow-coloured sofa, the house tilts and bucks in the night and all her possessions shrink back into their corners. All the furniture is too big. She doesn't have enough mugs to fill the cupboard, so she decides to keep the cookbooks in it too. A home should look pleasantly cluttered. It should look lived in. She potters and clutters and leaves casual trails of her discarded possessions around her. During the night, the house sighs them back into the single, bare precision of an exhibit. This is a house that likes the geometry of emptiness. She is temporary, she is a guest. The house has been let, it has been let down, it is unfulfilled, it is unfilled. This house hates her. Gemma asks for evening shifts at the museum. The third floor of the museum is a series of rooms, kitchens and sitting rooms mainly. The children can sit in the seats, twiddle the knobs of the Bakelite radios, try on aprons, turn the handle of a milk churn and press buttons on the touch screen of the kitchen of the future to find out how many kilojoules a fried egg contains. There are arrows on the floor pointing you from one room to the next to enhance the viewing experience and ensure you move from Mangle to Twin Tub to Zanussi. The arrows also have the effect of keeping people moving during busy periods and discouraging the school tours from lingering in a knot around the trouser press. The red pointers promise the digital fridges and automatic heat-sensitive mood lighting of the future. Gemma gets into the habit of walking through the Holmes exhibit, but doing it backwards, moving from aluminium and chrome to wood-effect linoleum, formica, scrubbed oak. They weren't houses, she knew that. They were sets, 3 walls only, with a 4th open to whoever wanted to wander in and examine the furnishings. She had worked at the museum long enough to become almost invisible to the evening caretakers, who would sometimes turn the lights off while she was sitting in the red vinyl recliner, thinking perhaps she was part of the exhibit herself. While she sits, Gemma empties out her mind and lets it go blank. Sometimes she is curious about how little effort that takes. She sits in the red vinyl recliner and forgets to smile and nod at the fluidly moving caretakers, and she tries to remember what has come behind her. There are only 2 or 3 things: long black hair that clogged the vacuum cleaner, a wardrobe stuffed with clothes. She folded the overflow in a row of laundry baskets. Recycling boxes filled with green and brown bottles, mugs of coffee that appeared on the bedside table, steaming as soon as she opened her eyes. The caretakers move around after dark in little pools of their own light. It is like a theatre. Every time she thinks about it, she reminds herself to pay attention next time. Do they carry little torches to light their way like the ushers in the cinema that Annie and Grace and Daddy Warbucks go to? Or are they spotlit like Danny and Bernadette dancing to Blue Moon in Greece? She waits in that exhibition a long time. It's not as if her own house is waiting for her to come home. Now they spend their evenings apart from each other. They are both breathing sighs of relief, breathing more easily, just breathing. Sometimes Gemma settles in the dark for so long that she can see the ghosts in the home exhibit come to life. One touch and the Kenwood mixers start churning pizza bases and cake mix and pancake batter. Shadowy aproned figures open and close oven doors, pull long-handled pans from the depths of shining, steaming Ray-Bans. Wooden blocks form themselves into toppling towers on rugs in front of gas flame effect fires. Rocking horses start to swing in front of suddenly glowing coal, pulled backwards and forwards by the manic lean of insubstantial, half-grown bodies. There are smells: shepherd's pie, prawn cocktail, angel delight, mutton, bread, microwave lasagna, powdered falafel mix, toast, tea, beef. The sets pause, shimmering in anticipation and as if they were nothing more than the reflections on soap bubbles. Gemma holds herself still and waits with them. The vinyl arms grow tacky under her palms. A person can hold their breath for 2 minutes. Mothers and midwives and the models for the works of art that hang on the walls downstairs. She counts. She has had time to think all this, and time again to think about how long thoughts take, how long they exist before they fall apart and dissolve into strands of ash and smoke blooms. And then 12, 15, 23 doors swing open with such force the cut glass handles, wooden knobs and shining plastic levers impress their shapes soundlessly into the walls of the plasterboard sets. And the men who we have been waiting for, we have been holding our breath and waiting for, all those men lope or stride or shuffle in, carrying brown envelopes of old money or briefcases and Bible-sized mobile phones, smelling of whiskey or pigs or blood, trampling in coal dust or snow or nothing but boot polish and the smell of newspaper print, brute, Old Spice, coal tar sweat. There is a whispering, a fluttering of net curtains, the sound of a thumb flicking through a telephone directory. The houses are pleased and inhaling and exhaling all at the same time, and the little and big waiting ghosts are pleased. I'm home, all these men say, like a choir, a pretend choir of men in a musical, like the chimney sweeps, like the Von Trapps, and like nothing else apart from themselves. And Gemma is gone.